Hey everybody, welcome back to this new View episode where we are continuing our Python object-oriented programming, but we are going to make a practical example. And this practical example is creating a web server application using Python native libraries. So by the end of this three-part tutorial, you'll be able to create a local server by yourself and will be at the local host. And it will be an application that will hand the book hunters or book name hunters. And after that, you'll be able to put the name. For example, let's put the name Harry Potter. And this will generate the list of the books of Harry Potter that are available through a Google API. You will be able to put whatever the name and you will get it. And also this application will be managing the exception, for example, if you click to nothing. So if you are interested to understand how the object-oriented programming works and through a kind of native library of Python, stay tuned and follow this tutorial. As we are going to create a web application using Python, let's have one step back and try to have a quick recap regarding the computer network. So let's take a look at this picture of a network. So it's a bunch of computers connected together. On the other hand, a computer is considered a part of the network if it has a unique reachable IP. And if this is still a little bit complicated for you, you can imagine the network as a big city. And each one of those computers is a building within that city that can be reached with a kind of a post system. And to have a better picture of how this is all working, each of the building will have a lot of rooms. Those rooms are really what connect all the buildings together. So if there is a person in a building in a room, we'll send a letter to another person in a room in a different building. And from network perspective, those rooms are ports. So within a computer, you do have the IP address, but also the port. And this kind of room or port are called active is when you do have someone there listening at the door and replying to messages coming from a different other building. And from network perspective, this is called when you do have a person listening at the port or a program, it's called an application for a server. And the server is the connected computer to the network. Then let's go to more specific picture, which is the web application server. So the web application uses the HTTP protocol. Not only that, there's also TCP and UDP to secure the communication between two computers, a server and the client. And here, as you can see in the picture, usually the client is a browser and the server is a bunch of computers. So what happens after that is the client initiate or start the communication by sending a request for data or information. And this is what we will see later on within our code. So the server got that request. And also that request will contain the IP address and the port. And the server will have someone listening at that port. And then what we'll do, it will send a response as a feedback to that request. So the server will be listening to a certain port, and this is what we will see immediately after this in the code, and we'll send a response to the browser, which will display that data. So that was a quick summary of how the web application works, and now let's jump immediately to the code. Okay, let's finally do some code. So to start with, we are going to use the http server library, which is a native Python library. And within that library, we are going to use two classes, the base HTTP request handler and the HTTP server. So let's take a quick look on this library in the Python detail library. And here it says, and the warning, which is very important, do not use this for production. It means you don't go to a client and you tell them, okay, I will develop for you a server and using only this library. But this is really good library to understand natively what's going on within Python. You can use later on Django or Flask, but this one will help you to understand what's really going inside those big frameworks. So let's take a look again. So we do have here the HTTP server and the handler. So the HTTP server is a class, and this is what we have seen. And this class, we need to receive a server address So as we said, which address we are going to use, and also another request handler class. And here, this class, this HTTP base HTTP request handler, is a handler class. So that's why we are going to use both of these two guys. And also, so what's happening is the HTTP server is the guy listening to the port itself, what we have seen in the previous presentation, where the base HTTP request handler is the guy that proceed or work the request. So imagine it's a room with two guys. The first one is listening if there is a request, and as soon as there is a request, it gives to this HTTP request handler. So this guy will look and understand what's going on, and then pass it again to the HTTP server, which will use it to send it back to the client. Okay, so if we take a quick look here, how we declare them. So this is a way of declaring them. So it's a kind of a function that's called run. And here that says the server class is the HTTP server, and the handler class is the base HTTP request handler. So we give the server address. Here is they put nothing, and we will later on look how we can put something different. And the port is 8000. Finally, we declare an object using this class, the server class that we are seeing, which is here and which is equal to HTTP server, which will receive this tuple of something empty and 8000, and the handler class. Our handler class here is the base HTTP address. And finally, we run the HTTP server forever. So this is a picture or a very simple way to run it. We're going to do almost the same thing, and let's take a look how we can start. So we can go here and initiate the object. So we have web server, we call it web server, and we are going to use the HTTP server here. This is the class. And we are going to add the tuple. The first tuple, as you said, and if we look back again here, it will be the server address. And we are going to use the host name and the server port 8080. So let's quickly go there. So, and put here the host name here, which will be the local host or the local host of the computer. And we are going to add here the server port. So let's go here and put server port like this. So after that, this HTTP address will need a handler. And we're not going to use this one immediately. We need to customize a little bit this one. And as we are going to create a book application, let's create a class. We call it my book server, for example, my book server like this one. And that will inherit from the base HTTP request handler. So let's put a pass here. So let's add this one and create a pass. So here we can add it as my book server. Okay, so it's already inheriting everything, so I can pass it here. After that, just for sake to be sure to have the right address, let's print here and add this string. So server started, just to notify that everything is going well. Server started, and we can add the address, so the HTTP, because we are going to use the HTTP protocol. And after that, let's add the host name, so which is here our local host, but let's put it in this way so we can easily access it later on. And after that, we can put the server port here, server port. Okay, so this will be running our address, so our server. And after that, so this will be printing the address that we'll be using within our browser to connect to our server. So then let's make it a try so we don't have any issues. And as they used here, they say server forever. Okay, so let's go here and put our web server and we call it, we add here server forever. So this is a method of this class this class of this object to run the server forever as a continuous loop. We need to add an exception, so let's put an except here, and we put the keyboard interrupt. So if we make an interrupt, we don't have too much messy console, and we add a pass here. Finally, if this is interrupted, we need to put the web server. We have to put this web server and we close it. So server here, and we call server close. So this will close the server, and just to print the server has been stopped. Server stopped. We're still a bit far away because we don't have a lot of things, but let's just run this one and see what will happen. So let's try Python, and then we go to run this one, and if we run it, it say hostname is not defined. So let's check what kind of hostname here, and I guess I messed up a little bit here. Let's save, clean our console, run it again, and we do have our server started. So let's copy this one, this address, and we go here to see how things works. Okay, so we do have an error response because we don't have a handler. We didn't put anything in our handler. So we need to have a get method. So if you read here, unsupported method get. So we need to add our get method, which is already within our base HTTP handler and which the server will be looking for. So let's start by creating this get method. So let's go here and create it's a predefined, let's go here. So we go to def and then the do, and we add the get method like this. It will be receiving only self for the moment. We don't need to make a lot of complicated stuff. So let's go here. And then let's try, this one is not really correct. And so what we need to do as a response to a request, first of all, we need to add what they call a header, just to say that everything is okay, and we need to put a response first. So self here, and adding send response. So sending response is just saying to the browser that all is good, we are hearing you, we are listening to you. And also let's add also self, and all this self data that you see, this kind of send response is a predefined method within the base HTTP handler. So let's go here and here for send header. So after sending the response, we need to send the header. Send, and here it's already predefined, and we need to send, this is a kind of standard application for the web. So we put content type like this, and after that we are going to add the text HTML. We are saying that we are going to send only text HTML, and this, I hope I am correct on this one. And finally we need to end the header, so self like this, and end headers, and what we can just close this one. By this one we are sending a response saying okay, we are receiving the request, and after that we are going to send the header saying we are going to have the content type as a text HTML. Okay, so let's save here and see what will going to happen. So let's close the server, so by Control C. So the server has stopped, so I clicked Control C, and now rerun the server again. So let's clean it and rerun the server again. So if I rerun it, I have nothing, which is normal, but I don't have the error message. And this is because I just sent the header. So let's go here and take a look to the inspect. And if I go to my console, so this is really empty. And if I go to the network, so there's nothing here for the console, this is empty. Yeah, everything is empty because I'm not sending nothing at this moment. Just take a look, everything is still empty. So let's close it. And now after that, we will add some data that will change this format. So let's close the server again. Control C, we close the one. So I added on the top here a certain CSS and HTML. So this is the code that we don't need to spend time just copying and writing, but this is a very simple HTML format that will show us the application or the HTML file that we are going to send. And as you can see, there is an F and a CSS. So the style or the is added here within the CSS. So if you would like to play with it and customize it, all the code is available on GitHub, so feel free to play with it. So to send this code, to add all this code, you just have to write self and W or write file. For this one, write file, and what you can see add on this one is another this is not what this one, write file, and after that you add write here, and even within the write itself, you still need to send the data by using bytes here, so bytes, and after bytes, you can put the HTML, and finally, this HTML will need to have the format to the UTF-8. Okay, so let's clean the console again and rerun it. Okay, all is good. So let's refresh here, and you can see I do have my HTML now and also the formatting of my CSS. So let's inspect quickly to see what's going on here. So let's make this one a little bit smaller. So you can see I do have a small container here, and within this container, this is here where you should see the summary, and we do have two other items that are not generated because I didn't make my research. Okay, so now just what happened is we created the handling the request of GET, and this is the basic request coming from the browser. So now when we get the request, when we have a browser sending to us, hey guys, do you have some data? So the first thing to do is to send this response with a header and then sending this HTML file. And let's improve a little bit our code, and by creating a def here, we can add another method that we can customize. We call it set response. Okay, so this is our own method that we create, and here this is self, and we can put here all this code. So we don't need, if we need to have to use a different thing later on, we can just add here self dot, and we can see the set response like this. Okay, this is just some optimization for us. So this is the get method that should be here. Okay, this is great. This is great. So now we do have a communication between the browser and the server, and you see how simple it can be. So, and the server is working, so it's listening to the browser, and all works well. And each time I'll be running, you can see the server saying that there is an HTTP communication and the response is 200. That's fantastic. So now let's go to the last step of this part, is sending the request or having some data coming from the browser requesting to the server something. And here we do have a form where we need to send the book name. But if I put something here, so let's say 7 habits, for example, I don't know what I'm keeping asking for, and I send, we do have an error code saying, hey guys, we don't have the post method working. And this is because we are sending a different request. So when we just initiate or starting with the web browser, we're just sending a GET request. And this is another type of request that we need to manage or to handle within our base HTTP handler, which is the POST request. So let's go here and create, same as the do GET, which is a predefined request, we are going to create a def here and a do POST. Okay, so as usual, as a normal method, we need to add the self, and then what we need to do initially is just to get the length of what we do have within that request. So the request will send us within the post some data, and we need to capture what the server asked for. So this data. So what we need to do here, just go here. First of all, take the content length. How long is my data? So let's take content length like this. GTH, if I hope I'm correct, and that's what we can do. We take the integer, and this is within the header. We can take self, and this is a predefined also data within the server itself, self headers, and we need to take from that dictionary here, we need to take the content length. And the content is the data coming from the form itself. Content length, let's take here. So this will say to us, we are the length of the data exactly. And after that, we are going to get the data itself. So form string here, and that will be equal to self.r file. And this is also something that is predefined. If we go back here to the HTTP server, you do have all this coming with the base request handler, all this free code coming from the inheritance. So all this data is automatically doing everything for us. So let's go back here. So our file, and we need to read here the content length. So if we go the content length, so this is what we need to get, because this is the length of the data that we need to read, and we need to add also the decode, because there is always a difference between how the browser looks and how the Python data is getting to the Python program itself. So we need to read using the format UTF-8. And finally, let's print the data to see the picture, what's coming to us. So we call form string this one. And finally, we need to give a reply to the user. So as of now, let's reply just get back, send the self. And if we do self do get like this, we were just replying the normal HTML that we created in the previous one. So let's save, close our server, Control-C, so the server has stopped, and rerun it again. Let's clean the console, go back twice, and run it. Okay, so we do have our server running. So let's refresh. So here we do have a refresh using a normal get, and then let's go here and see what's happening. So what we do have here, what we received is the B title, and if I go to the inspection here from the form itself, let me show you the form. Here, this is my form, and I have the ID as fname, so that's what we have received. So fname, and that's what is the data. So I put it 7 habits. So let's make it a little bit smaller here so you can see the response in real time. So let's say here STM32, for example, and we do have the data coming. So we are capturing the data, and this is all thanks to a base HTTP server handler and the inheritance to our code. So you have seen now, just by understanding the classes and the method, you can clearly and quickly understand what's going on in the program, even with a little bit complicated library. So this is the part 1 where we just understand how to get the data and send it back. And the next step, we will see a little bit more how to handle it to make it more visible and to get the data from the API perspective. So stay tuned and see you in the next episode.